In the shadowed lands of an ancient African kingdom, nestled between vast savannas and towering baobabs, there lived a man named Akeem. He was known for his charm, wit, and smile that could melt the hearts of even the most reserved. He was very handsome, which made him known across the kingdom. Akeem hailed from a lineage of warriors. His ancestors had fought valiantly, conquering lands, protecting their people, and amassing great wealth and influence. However, as generations passed, the flame of their legacy dimmed. By the time it reached Akeem, all that remained were tales of valor and little to no wealth. Despite the faded glory of his house, Akeem was determined to restore it. His heart was filled with ambition, and he knew that to climb the social ladder, he needed to marry well. One evening, at a grand village festival that drew people from all over the region, Akeem's eyes fell upon the most radiant woman he had ever seen, Zainab, the eldest daughter of the rich businessman, Alhaji Danjuma. Zainab moved with the grace of an antelope and the confidence of someone who knew her value. Her beauty was unmatched, and her wisdom was on full display. Akeem knew at that moment that she would most likely be the key to his redemption. Zainab, however, was no fool. She had grown up around men who sought her hand for reasons beyond love. But Akeem was different. He didn't just want Zainab. He admired her, coveted her strength, and soon, after months of courting, he convinced her of his sincerity. Their marriage was the talk of the entire kingdom, celebrated with grand festivities, and Akeem felt he had finally secured his place in society. Yet, beneath the surface of their happiness, a dark force stirred. Zainab's mother, Maiza, was a woman still in her prime. She had borne children at a young age and retained much of her youthful beauty. As fate will have it, her husband Alhaji Danjuma had a terrible illness that lasted for a few years. He later passed away, having battled through it. Maiza became a widow while still young and vibrant. Since her husband's passing, Maiza ruled the household with an iron fist and a shrewd mind, steering the family's affairs with unmatched precision. Akeem, with his charm and attentiveness, caught her eye early in his courtship of Zainab. But Maiza dismissed her initial attraction, considered it was a liking for her soon-to-be son-in-law, and reminded herself of her role as a mother-in-law. Still, Akeem's presence lingered in her thoughts. As the months went by, Zainab's younger sister, Nia, returned from a distant land where she had been studying herbalism and medicine. Nia was the opposite of Zainab, free-spirited, wild, and unpredictable. She was drawn to Akeem's charisma, often watching him from a distance, imagining what it would be like to be loved by such a man. Thus, unknown to each other, the three women, Zainab, Maiza, and Nia, harbored secret desires for the same man. And Akeem, ever the opportunist, noticed these hidden yearnings. It all began innocently enough. One evening, when Zainab was away visiting her father's village, Akeem found himself alone with Maiza. They shared palm wine in the moonlight, speaking of life, loss, and longing. The atmosphere grew thick with tension, and in a moment of weakness, Maiza leaned in, her breath warm against Akeem's neck. What began as a fleeting temptation soon spiraled into a forbidden affair. Their secret liaisons continued, always in the dead of night behind closed doors. Akeem felt guilty but justified his actions by telling himself that it was merely physical. Maiza, however, began to develop deeper feelings for him. She saw in Akeem not just a lover, but a man who could replace the husband she had lost. Then, one fateful night, Nia returned home earlier than expected. She stumbled upon Akeem leaving her mother's chambers, his clothes in disarray, and an unmistakable look of guilt etched on his face. Instead of confronting him, Nia approached him privately the next day. Akeem, caught between fear and lust, was shocked when Nia made her intentions clear. "I have seen what you do with my mother," she whispered, her eyes gleaming. "But I want you for myself. I have always wanted you." Akeem, now entangled in a web of desire, succumbed to Nia's advances. The wild, untamed energy that Nia possessed intoxicated him, and their secret affair blossomed in the shadows. The guilt weighed heavily on Akeem's soul, but the lust, the power he felt in having control over 3 women, blinded him. He did not consider the consequences of his actions, believing that as long as he could maintain the facade of a loving husband to Zainab, everything would be fine. Weeks turned into months, and the inevitable happened. Zainab, Maiza, and Nia all found themselves pregnant, each unaware of the other's situation, but each carrying Akeem's child. The village, of course, celebrated Zainab's pregnancy as it would solidify the union between her and Akeem. But as Maiza's and Nia's bellies began to swell, the whispers began. Akeem, always quick with explanations, claimed that Maiza had taken another lover in secret, and Nia, who was unmarried, had been careless with a traveling merchant. The tension in the household grew unbearable. Maiza, once a proud and powerful matriarch, was now overshadowed by her shame. Nia, who had always been the free-spirited one, found herself struggling with her condition, torn between her desire for Akeem and the burden of her pregnancy. Zainab, blissfully unaware of the true source of the turmoil, focused solely on preparing for the birth of her child, but the spirits of the ancestors are never blind. One night, as the 3 women slept under the same roof, a great storm descended upon the village. Lightning cracked the sky, and thunder rumbled like the angry voices of long-dead kings. In the midst of the storm, an old woman appeared at the door of Akeem's home. She was bent and haggard, her skin like dried leather, and her eyes burned with an otherworldly fire. "I seek the man who has defiled the sacred bond of family," she rasped, her voice like the wind howling through the trees. Akeem, trembling, tried to deny her accusations, but the old woman knew the truth. She was a messenger of the ancestors, sent to deliver justice to the man who had dared to upset the natural order. "You have slept with mother, daughter, and sister," the old woman intoned, her eyes narrowing. "You have tainted the bloodline and brought shame to this house. For this, you will be cursed." Akeem fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but the old woman's heart was cold as stone. "For the rest of your days, the women you have wronged will bear your burden. Their children will be born under a shadow, and their lives will be marked by misfortune." With that, the old woman vanished into the storm, leaving Akeem shaking with fear. True to the old woman's words, the pregnancies of Zainab, Maiza, and Nia did not proceed as expected. Zainab, who had once glowed with the promise of motherhood, grew sickly and weak. Maiza, who had always been a picture of strength, found herself bedridden, plagued by strange dreams and visions. Nia's wild spirit faded, replaced by a deep sadness that clung to her like a shroud. When the time came for the children to be born, the village gathered to witness the momentous occasion. But what should have been a time of celebration quickly turned to horror. Zainab's child was born still, his tiny body cold and lifeless. Maiza's child, though alive, bore strange markings on his skin, and the village elders whispered that he was cursed. Nia's child, a daughter, was born healthy, but she did not cry. Her silence was a chilling omen. The weight of the curse hung over the household, and the once proud family fell into disarray. Akeem, haunted by guilt and shame, could no longer bear to live with the consequences of his actions. He fled the village, disappearing into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Zainab, broken by the loss of her child and the betrayal of her husband, retreated into herself, becoming a shadow of the woman she once was. Maiza, racked with guilt for her part in the affair, took her own life, leaving behind a child destined for a life of hardship. Nia, the only one left to carry on the family name, raised her daughter in silence, forever marked by the curse of the man they had all loved. In time, the story of Akeem and the 3 women became a cautionary tale told around village fires. It was a reminder of the dangers of unchecked desire, the consequences of betraying those closest to you, and the wrath of the ancestors who watched from beyond the veil. For in the end, the bloodline was not just a bond of kinship. It was a sacred thread, and to defile it was to invite ruin upon all. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.